Morning, everybody. How you doing? Welcome back to the Spurs Talk Show. We're down the canal this morning, very autumnal. All the leaves in the water and all that. How you doing? I hope you're all happy and healthy doing the things you love. I am Sean Butler. There's Bugsy Malone. And I need to ask you guys a couple of favours before we get into today's transfer news, views and clues. And we do have some quite interesting new names to bring to your attention. But before we do that, please hit the like button on the video, like you always do. It really does help the channel out massively. And hit the subscribe if you haven't already. But even if you have already, can you do me a favour and check that you haven't been unsubscribed? Because a few people have reached out to me saying that they thought they were subscribed, and then they looked and they weren't, and they were sure that they had. So, because there is 50% of people that aren't subscribed who watch this channel regularly, so just double check for me, and if you haven't, then smash it. Appreciate that. Hit the notification bell and drop a comment. Let me know your thoughts on today's topic. And today's topics, guys, we've got a few updates from some transfer gurus. We've got John Wenham, who came out, who's like, I think he works for the Football Insider, and he's, or is it Sports Insider? No, Football Insider, I believe. And he said all these rumours that are out there regarding Tottenham not having enough money, don't believe it. He says Tottenham are going to be very active in the transfer window. He thinks we're going to get a left-sided centre-back in very early in the window, such as Ange Postecoglou's demands or requirements. Possibly going to be Lloyd Kelly. And as I said on Sunday night show, my mind has changed a little bit on Lloyd Kelly. I expect a bit more time kind of looking into him. I now see that why there is the demand, outside of just the fact that he's homegrown and he's a desirable type of player, and the fact that he's a left-footed, left-sided centre-back, and they're kind of rare. The superlatives that were given about him by previous managers at Bournemouth, they do tell a tale that I think when you read between the lines, you can see why there's a bit more demand for him. And I think it's because of his assets, his physical traits, his ability to run at pace, his vision. He's got leadership qualities. He's been the captain of Bournemouth. But I just think that we haven't seen the best of him because of the system in which Bournemouth play, and the fact that they are usually on the receiving end of a barrage of better teams coming at them, that they then have to park a bit of a lower bus, or lower block, park the bus. And so consequently, you don't really get to see the best version of Lloyd Kelly, just like you wouldn't get to see Mickey van der Ven at his best if you were parking the bus with him in the back line. He's comes alive when he's got space in behind, because he can use that pace to get out of trouble, time his tackles, etc. And I think that the more I look into Lloyd Kelly, the more I feel like he does suit what we need, in the fact that he is left-footed, he is left-sided, he can play left-back, similar to Van der Ven, and he's big, tall, strong and fast. His timing, his tackle's good, he can play a long ball. I'm not positioning him as like at the Van der Ven level at all, but I'm saying that if you are familiar with him and only familiar with him via Bournemouth, then there might be, I'm not saying there is, but there might be a scenario here where we are just seeing a square peg for a round hole in terms of finding him the best fit for his suitability. And John Wenham thinks that Lloyd Kelly is going to come in early. He finishes the story and says, the noise that's being put out there about no transfer budget, that's probably just smart because they don't want other clubs to know that you have money and you're desperate. Given all the injuries that Tottenham are, they probably are a bit desperate. And whilst I see the logic for it, personally, I'm going to stick to my guns on this one and say, I've been saying it, I don't think that there is that much money, because I don't think that Daniel Levy's willing to put his hand in his pocket. He could and should go and get that £50 million that has not been taken from that 150 injection yet. But absent that, I still think when you remember I've said it 1,000 times, how much money we're spending net, how little money we've recuperated over the last 6 years since the transfer window. You add the £120 million net spend every year to the fact that we're 50% wages to revenue turnover ratio, and you figure out that without some clever accounting, you're pretty close to the FFP, well, next year's FFP guidelines. So I'd be surprised if there's anything more than 70, 80 million. I'm usually wrong, but I'm going to stick to my guns. John Wenham's going in a different direction. it's a nice direction to hear that we're going in. Let's move away from Wenham and move to Ornstein, the Athletic. Always someone you want to listen to when he's talking. He knows his stuff. And he's basically poo-pooed the idea that Tottenham or Arsenal were going to sign Ruben Neves. We did a video about that a couple of days ago. He says if Neves is going to go anywhere in January, it's going to be Newcastle. And that doesn't surprise me. They're trying to find a replacement for Tonali, who's out with a ban because of his betting or his gambling addiction. And also, of course, the relationship between the PIF at Newcastle and the clubs in Saudi Arabia. 5 clubs are owned by the same PIF. So, it was. I said it on Twitter back in the summer when he went to Saudi Arabia in the first place. I said, you wait and see, he'll be back before you know it. It's a way to circumvent the rules. You sell a player for cheap, you loan them back into one of your feeder groups, and it's another way to get around FFP. And I think that's exactly what's going to happen. And I think that if that does happen, then another rule needs to be closed, another loophole needs to be figured out by people that make the rules. If you're throwing the book at Everton and you're thinking about throwing the book at Manchester City and Chelsea, you know, these other shenanigans that are so obvious when you think about them, they have to also be curtailed. But yet, according to all reports, the Premier League is actually thinking about loosening the rules around third-party ownership, loosening the frameworks in which clubs can loan to each other within their network. And I said before, the Leipzig deal with Salzburg for one of their players, I forget the guy's name, was 50% of market value, and there was uproar about it, but then it just pushed under the rug, under the table, swept under the carpet. That's the phrase I'm looking for. So I don't see anything changing, but it should, because it's ludicrous that Newcastle are up against FFP and that their owners can just buy from a club in Saudi Arabia a brilliant player and then loan him back into another club that you couldn't otherwise do unless you had that third-party ownership. The whole thing stinks. Anyway, he's not going to come to Tottenham or Arsenal. I didn't expect him to anyway, as I said the other day on the video. So we're getting those two out of the way, guys. The two stories, though, the two transfer news views and clues. First and foremost, you've got Romanian centre-back. I like to check his name then because it's a hard one. Radu Dragusin, who plays for Genoa in the Serie A, currently sits 13th. His agent, whose name is Florin Manea, has come out and said he spent time in London this week. He's had meetings with Arsenal, with Tottenham, with Newcastle, with these sorts of calibre clubs, and I'm quoting here. He said that by the end of the summer, by the end of next season, Dragusin will 100% be playing for a top 10 club. He wants to play in the Premier League, but Milan are still interested as well. Look, I'll be honest, I've said before, I don't watch too much Serie A football outside of the teams that play in Europe, and Genoa being a sort of mid-table team, I don't really have too much knowledge on their players. But of course I've gone and done my research on this guy, and I think he's got incredible PR. Like, if you go and type his name into Google and then hit the news button, all you're going to see is a long list of articles written over the last 12 months about this guy being compared to Virgil van Dijk, that he is a superstar waiting to happen. He is a wonder kid. He's 21 years old, he's going places. And then you go and look at his FB refs, which I'll put up on the screen briefly for you, and you go, huh? Doesn't look like he's statistically very good at anything other than he scores a few more goals than the average centre-back. And so, of course, stats don't tell you everything, so I go and look at the Y-Scout tool, his everything reels. I go and look at him, his heading abilities, long balls, his tackling, and here's what I'll say. This guy is an incredibly confident, big, strapping, tall, fast player. He's about 6'4". He's very quick, but he's really strong. So confident on the ball. Every single time he looks up, though, he looks to ping the ball 30 yards, Toby Alderweireld style. Reminds me a little bit of Victor Nelson at Galatasaray, who does the same sort of thing. And you have to go quite a long way down the list, not as far down the list of chronological attempts at long passes as you do with Victor Nelson on the Y Scout tool, but he's also, this guy's similar in that he loves a ping into the channel and usually gets it right. So he's very comfortable on the ball. He's comfortable carrying the ball, and he's very good in the air. Very, very good in the air, both offensively and defensively. His timing of his jumps are brilliant. He's obviously super big as well, so he pops up with a few goals for Genoa. Defensively though, just not sure if he's that much to write home about. I feel like he looks like he's probably got a bit of a mistake in him. Again, I don't know him that well. Just reporting on what I've seen. People that do report on him in blogs and that, they speak about him as though he's almost a couple of decent improvement seasons away from being world class, Virgil van Dijk-esque. I wouldn't go that far. Physically, he's very, very overbearing, and he does have all the physical traits, the speed and the size and the confidence on the ball. Again, just not sure about off-ball, but he's been linked with us. He's been linked with, as I say, with Newcastle, with Tottenham, all the big teams. He's a right-footed left-sided centre-back. Not sure if that's going to be too much of an issue. From what I could see, I didn't see him hit the ball with his left foot once. Everything's very right-footed, and of course that can close the game off a little bit when you're trying to spread it. If your natural inclination is to turn your body back inside, then is that going to cut off the likes of Udogie from the action? Probably not if he's coming inverted, but look, I won't go too much further on it. Take a look for yourself. Let me know if you actually follow Genoa. Do you think is he the next big thing? £20 million apparently is the asking price for him, and there's a lot of teams that are after him. So interesting. The last one, guys, we've got for you is, got to look at my list again, there's so much to talk about today. Santos striker, 21-year-old Marcus Leonardo. 21 goals this calendar year. Obviously the kind of footballing season is different in Brazil. I think so far this season, I think he scored 13 goals in their league and 4 assists. He's according to Transfer Market, he's an out-and-out number 9 or a second, like a support striker, like a false 9 kind of player. I don't know, obviously I don't follow Brazilian football, so I looked up him on Y Scout and on the FB refs. His stats don't look that meaningful. He's kind of 60th, 70th percentile in most things. But when you watch him on the video, he reminds me a hell of a lot of Gabriel Jesus. Like, he's very tricky. He loves a back heel, loves a flick, but he likes driving at players. Lots of step overs. I feel like he would be more suited as a winger, but he's not. He's plays for Santos in the striker role. Very, very good finisher. He loves to bring people in, like I say, with a lot of like trickery and deceptive passes. Like I think you'll see more no-look passes from him than you would from Emerson Royale. I don't know if that's everything that you want. Is it too much of that? Sometimes too much of that stuff can get irritating. Richarlison was always trying to do those things and just wasn't very good at them. And I don't know, this guy looks like he's very good at that kind of trickery stuff, or the kind of flair issues. But he's got a pedigree for scoring goals. And according to reports, Tottenham are looking at him, but then so are everybody else that are looking for a striker. And everybody's looking for a striker, remember. So I'm guessing that this is just one of those things where, journalists are looking, going, well, look, this teenager striker, there's probably 5 top teams in the Premier League that are somewhat looking or desperate, somewhere on that spectrum, for a proper 9. You've got a lot of teams in Europe that are looking for them as well, and there's just not enough going around. And so you're forced to look elsewhere. Now, one of the benefits of Brexit is that Tottenham and other teams in the Premier League now can go straight to source in South America and sign, I think it's up to 6 a year, personnel from outside the EU, and get those special sort of dispensation, or I think that's the word, dispensation for visas, so that you don't have to do what you normally do as a football club if you like a player in South America, which is wait for someone like Spain or Portugal to bring them over. Usually via their ancestry, they can get into those sorts of countries first. prove themselves there, which gives those teams the ability to take a risk and buy a player for £6 million, see if he handles it, £10 million, and then sell them for 40 or 50 a couple of years later. Tottenham and Arsenal and the Premier League now have the access to go straight to that, which immediately puts their local prices up a little bit more. So whereas teams in Spain or Portugal could have bought this player probably for £10 million 2 years ago, now they're going to cost £20 million because of the access to the source from the clubs that have the most money, which is the Premier League clubs. And like I say, according to all news reports, it's not just Tottenham. Arsenal are looking at him, Chelsea are looking at him, Juventus are looking at him if they were to sell Vlahovic. I think it's just another name we might be hearing a lot more of over the coming months as the transfer market heats up and the demand and supply economics of strikers is such that if there's a player out there that scored 20 goals this season and he's young, then you're going to hear about him wherever he is in the world, whatever league he's playing in, whatever standard. As I always caveat, if I don't know the player that well, then I'll say I don't know it, but I'll do my best to tell you what I think. I actually quite like this guy. He looks really interesting, but I genuinely don't know what standard Brazilian league football is relative to, European leagues. If you do, let me know. And is this the guy that you want? We've already gone sort of young South American once this season in Alejo Veliz, and he's not ready, but he was smashing it in Argentina. So would that make you kind of have a second guess, a second thought about doing it again? Do you really want to drop 20 million quid on a player who again isn't necessarily going to be ready yet? I don't even know what the difference is between Argentinian league football and Brazilian league football, so forgive me, but I still want to see us go after Santiago Jimenez. For me, that's my guy. Who's your guy? Let me know, guys. Let me know. I'll leave it there. Been talking for 17 minutes, but that's your news, views and clues. Neves off, probably to Newcastle, and that stinks. Leonardo from Santos. Radu Dragusin, Romanian man from Genoa. And John Wenham thinks that Lloyd Kelly is going to be the first bit of business for Tottenham, and it's going to be part of several bits of business that commences early in the window, not late, and that this rumour that Tottenham haven't got any money is just to throw other teams off the scent. And makes sense to me. I still believe though that Tottenham actually don't want to spend that much money. Let me know your thoughts, guys. Like, subscribe and comment, and as always, bye bye.